Another limiting belief that is costing people financial freedom is this belief that the market is too unpredictable. Now, my friend, the truth is that the market isn't your problem. It's your strategy that's the problem, or the lack of a strategy. That is the real problem. So when people say that the market is too unpredictable, what they're really saying is, I don't know what I'm doing. You see, the market has always been unpredictable to those who lack the right strategy. But those with the right skills and the right systems and strategy, it's absolutely a playground of opportunities. I've discovered this way back in 1987, and that's when I started building wealth in a so-called uncertain market. Now, let me take you back to those days. The interest rates, and you can Google this, you can check this up, were really, really high. Inflation here in South Africa was brutal, and that seemed very, very dangerous. But you know what? I didn't rely on luck. I didn't cross my fingers and believe that it would work out. I used the wealth creator strategy. And therefore, I applied what became the formula for riches. And that's how I became financially free by the age of 37. So, have you ever questioned why we believe in things that we never seen, like the market is unpredictable, but we ignore what's right in front of us? Most people say things like, I believe the market will recover. And I've seen this in the financial field where people see that things are not working out, but they keep their money because they hope that the market is going to recover, because they say, I believe. They say, I hope prices is going to drop and then I'll get into the market. Or what about this one? And I'm sure that you've said it yourself. I'm going to try. I'm going to try to make this work. Or I hope that this investment is going to work. These are things that we say on a regular basis. But here's the truth, my friend. Belief is blind. Hope is absolutely passive. And trying is really uncertain. You don't believe in the sun or the moon. You see them, you experience them, and therefore they are. Yet most people base their financial decisions on nothing more than programming and fear, what other people tell us. And then we start to believe in that. That's nonsense. There are no facts, there's no strategy, there's no reality when it comes to this thing that the market is too unpredictable or that the market is not safe. It's because other people want us to believe this, that this becomes our belief system, and then we react according to that. Now, this is why I'd like to give you a little formula. It's almost like a roadmap that you can follow if you want to become successful in life. Right, so the formula for wealth being is only 7 components to it. Intent, belief, surplus, action, leverage, result, and accelerator. So let's dive a little bit deeper into it and let me break it down for you so that you can see the sequence that you need to follow in order to become super successful. First of all, we start with intent. You must know exactly what it is that you want. Most people don't know it because they hope to be financially free. But you need to sit down and say, okay, this is what I want. And then, why do I really want this? And then, what skills do I need to get in order to make sure that I become the person that can make my intent a reality? To me, when I started, I sat and I said, what's financial freedom? What does it mean to me? Why do I want this financial freedom? I did not want just comfort. I did not want to continue in a job for the rest of my life. Comfort means that you are not going to step up. You're not going to grow as a person. You're going to sit within this comfort because the brain, the mind wants us in our comfort zone. And the moment that you step up and step out of that comfort zone, it's almost like a shock to your system. But unfortunately, the only way that you can grow is by stepping out of your comfort zone. So you cannot be comfortable in this that you do if your intent is strong enough, because the intent, the function of that is for you to become a better version of yourself. Right. So once you've set the intent, and you can do it in all areas of your life, by the way, once you've set the intent, now we have to check the belief system. Now, I'm not talking about this blind belief system that they call faith. You know, you just believe that you're going to become successful. No, you need empowered conviction backed by knowledge, backed by wisdom, backed by skills, backed by that you know that by taking responsibility, you are in charge and that you can do whatever you want and get the results that you want because you believe in yourself, you believe in the skills that you require and that you are going to acquire in order to get to where you want to be. Now, once that is in place and you look at these beliefs and they are not the limiting beliefs, or you are willing to work on those belief systems so that they do not keep you back, then you need a surplus. Now, you need a margin. And there are two ways to get a surplus. The first one is if you've got a job and your standard of living or your living expenses is lower than your income after tax and deductions, then you've got a surplus. But what if you've got no surplus or you do not even have a job, right? Then you can create a surplus. Now, I'm not going to go into this training session here in order for you to know how to do it. But you can start a business with absolutely no money by simply following the Rainmakers start a business process, right? Where with no money, with no idea, you can start a business and create that surplus. And then all you have to do with this surplus is to make sure that your IGR, your investment growth rate, in other words, that your money that is working, the pace at which it's working, is bigger than your FFGR, which means and stands for your financial freedom growth rate. So your intent directly relates to the surplus and the growth on that surplus, because if your surplus is not working at that rate, your intent will never manifest. Right. Now, in order to do that, you have to actually do something. You have to take action. But do you know, there are two actions that we can take. The one is to work and to take that surplus and give it to someone else and hope that they're going to give us the outcome that we want. That is to try or to wait on someone else to help you to become successful. But then there's another action that you need to take, and this is part of the wealth creator strategy, which is the intelligent use of limited resources to go from where you are to where you want to be in the shortest possible time with the least amount of risk. Risk is when you do not understand what you're doing, and the way to offset that you do not know is to gain the value skills. So by taking action to get the skills to offset the risk, you will get to a position where your IGR is bigger than your FFGR, which means that is your path to financial freedom. You do not have to wait on that. You do not have to first wait to get all the skills. You can start today and say, okay, what one skill set do I need? And then start to learn that, because we are not born with these skills, not in business, not in relationships, not in investments, not in cryptos, not on the stock market, nowhere. We have to learn this. Unfortunately, they're going to tell you, but you actually don't need it. Just trust the experts. You do not have to take action. They will do it on your behalf. And that is where the problem is going to come in. In other words, that action needs to come from you. You have to better yourself through the development of skills. Now, I follow the wealth creator strategy. And then you have to make sure to follow that, which is the intelligent use of limited resources. Right? When we start, we do not have a lot. Luckily, success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. But that progressive realization means that we have to do things. But here's a tip. The quickest way to become successful is to get the right information or the right skill sets in the right order for the level of the game. So at the level 1, you do not need a lot to see massive results in order to start this process. And as you start getting the results, you start building the next skill level. And by doing that, before you know it, you're going to reach that goal that you've set, your intent. So it's crucial that you understand, but where are you? Are you dependent on someone else, or are you willing to depend on yourself to gain the skills? The next point then is, now that I've got this and I started taking action, I need to leverage those limited resources. So, of course, you can use other people's money, times, and skills and tools. But you can't do that at the level 1, because where are you going to get the money in order to get the right people? How do you know that they are the right people? So leverage, you can do that. You can use other people's money. But at the same time, this can become a debt trap at the end of the day. Because if you do not understand for that level and at what level you can start using leverage in the way that people say, use other people's money and other people's time and other people's effort, that's a problem, right? But yes, something that very few people understand, and that is that the highest form of leverage is understanding what you're doing. When you learn how to identify risk, because risk is when you do not understand what you're doing, and then learn the skills in order to limit those risks, to manage those risks, to eliminate those risks, that is when the growth that you're going to get on your investment will accelerate automatically. You don't have to worry about that. Risk basically is the enemy of scale, and skill is the lever to overcome that enemy. In other words, to eliminate that risk or to mitigate or to manage that risk. Now that you start with this process, okay, we have to check the results, which is the next part of this formula. And the way that I'm doing it is very, very simple, is I'm looking that my investment growth rate is bigger than my FFGR. When I started off, I had X amount of money and I calculated I needed 55% compounded growth on a yearly basis on that monthly investment that I would make in order to be financially free. So as long as the growth on that investment was more than 55%, I knew that I was on track. And it's because I could get a better growth because of the next thing that I'm going to share with you, the Accelerator Principle, that we were in a position to be financially free basically at the age of 37. Right. But your results are going to be dependent on your skill level, as well as that you understand this little formula that your IGR must be bigger than your FFGR. And then you have to track it and you have to optimize those results, which leads us directly to the last point, and that is the Accelerator Principle. In other words, if I can give it to you in a very easy way to understand, it's you have to multiply what works and cut what doesn't. That's all. Now, here's the trick. When you apply this formula, the market's unpredictability becomes totally irrelevant, because you no longer react, you create. If you let fear of the market stop you, here's what's actually happening. You'll always wait for the right time. And that, my friend, I think by now you know is never going to come. You miss deals while others capitalize. You keep on saying, one day it's going to work. You rely on hope. I hope that I'm going to make it. Or I hope that my pension fund will be enough. Or my retirement annuity. Or I hope that they can give me the growth. But the truth is you're never going to experience freedom. Of course the markets go up and the markets go down. People say to me, honest, but what's going to happen next in the markets? And I say, there's two things that I know for a fact. The one is that the markets are going to go up. And the second one is that the markets, I know, is going to go down. Just like with the interest rate. The interest rates are going to go up and the interest rates will go down. Just like inflation, it will go up and it will go down. The only thing that I do not know is, but when? But that becomes totally irrelevant when you follow this formula and the wealth creator strategy. You see, wealth is built by those who know how to win either way. When we started buying properties in 87, things were not ideal to start buying properties. When the inflation started running away, people said, stay away from property. But that's the time to get into property when the interest rate went up to 24%. Right. Guess what happened? People tried to avoid property. That was the time, because I understand how things work, that we got into property. And when the market tanked, that's the time to get in. And then when the market was high, that's the time to get in, because you do a simple calculation. And to calculate beforehand if your IGR in a property can be better than your FFGR. Now, in order to get this, we first need to work on high-value mental skills, which boils down to your belief systems, right? So unless you change or adopt certain belief systems, you are not going to start with this process, which relate back to your belief systems, which is the second part of this 7-part formula. Now, personally, I do not rely on hope, because I've seen that this hope story is bullshit. It's not going to work. I personally don't wait for certainty, because you'll never be certain. You are going to make mistakes, but you can counter those mistakes, because those mistakes shows you what skills you need to acquire in order to overcome that problem. So I don't wait for certainty, because I use strategies to create opportunities. I create those opportunities in good markets. I create those opportunities in bad markets. I'm not a victim of the market. I'm the driver of my own outcomes. And if you can take this belief system and install this within you by gaining the skills, my friend, your life is going to change. You see, the market isn't the problem. It's your lack of strategy. That is a problem. That is what is risky. And once you replace the belief that the markets are unpredictable, that is when you take back control. Now, if you are ready to stop reacting and doing what other people tell you, and what the politicians tell you, and what the economists are telling you, and you want to start building predictable results, even in very uncertain and in very unpredictable markets, then why don't you join me for a free Property Accelerator Masterclass? You're going to find a link in the description area. Simply click on that. Make sure that you book your seat. Make sure that you pitch up. One of the examples that I'm going to show you is how I've turned just 100 Rand into a property portfolio worth more than 10 million by applying the wealth creator strategy. And I've used exactly the same strategy that I've taught since 2002 when I started with the Property Pro Investment System, by teaching that, and then it expands to the business, what we're doing there. Now, believe it or not, this is exactly the same strategy that I've used since 1987. But today, it's a lot easier because we've got technology, we've got systems, we've got AI that helps us. Now, here's the trick. If you're going to stay to the end of that masterclass, I will give you my Formula for Riches ebook, 100% for free. Now, if, of course, you like the printed version, then you can order it directly, the softcover edition, directly from our office. We're going to charge you 1,450 Rand for that. And that is one of the best investments that you can make in your life. But by spending just 2 or 3 hours with me, you can get this, because I'd like to almost pay you for your time to wake up and to understand the incredible power of this formula. So, thanks for your time. I'm Dreyer. I'm signing off. Until next time, I want you to think smarter. I want you to act bolder, and in the process, live free. Do this, and I'll see you at the top.